As you have already seen, references are very important to a research paper, and for that reason we're going to go back to cover something that I forgot to cover earlier, and that is not to repeat the same reference within the same paragraph. And we have a nice illustration of it on our sample MRP here. Let's take a look at this paragraph here. Notice that you have 1, 2, 3 references within the same paragraph. Now, if they were references to 3 different sources, or let's say to different places within the same source, there probably would be some sort of a problem with the paragraph because perhaps too much material is being covered in it. But notice that each one of them is exactly the same. It's the same source, Smith & Jones, same page number for all 3 of them. In a situation like this here, if you are taking information that's coming from the same place, you need to have only one reference to that particular source within the paragraph. Do not have redundancies within a paragraph like this. They will in fact earn you a 0. So please do take note of that when you are going through your work. Now, let's continue with references. We've already covered the things that they cannot have within them. No commas in them, and no abbreviations like P, PP, PG, etc. There is no reason whatsoever for them. And finally, in terms of references, references to your sources must occur within a sentence. They make no sense outside a sentence. They always must occur within a sentence. And let's see what I mean by that, and let's take a look at our sample MRP assignment to see if that is the case. Now, the first reference that we have here, despite the fact that it has this extraneous comma in it, is perfectly good in that it occurs within a sentence. Notice that it has a period after the reference in it. The second reference has a period after it, but it also has a period before it. This makes no sense whatsoever. I see it every semester. I have no idea why people feel that they need an extra period, but that extra period will in fact earn you a 0. So do not put it in there. The next reference occurs within a sentence. Notice it has the period after the reference. The next reference, this one given here, does not occur within a sentence. Notice it has the period before the reference. It should have it after the reference. Again, an error like that could earn you a 0 for the entire assignment. The references in this paragraph, despite the fact that there are all these redundancies in them, are all correct because all of them occur within a sentence, and the last paragraph lacks a reference to it. So now let's get to the actual technical details of what you are going to be writing. And the first thing is you cannot use any direct quotations whatsoever in the text. I really have no interest in reading anything but your own words on any topic. I have read many of your sources. I'm familiar with the styles of the authors of those sources, and I don't want to hear from them. There is no reason for you to have a direct quotation in an assignment of this source here. You're not analyzing what someone is saying. You're not translating something. There is no reason for it whatsoever. And in fact, people, I'll be able to tell exactly if it is, whether it is something of your own or not. For example, let's take a look at this passage here. X was only unintentionally misanthropic in his interactions with someone. My guess is this is something that the the author of this assignment found in one of his sources, was apparently interested in it, and decided to include it here. It was not a good idea to do so, however, because this quotation, however natural it might have been for the author of the source in which this person got it from, does not work in this situation here. In fact, it would be very easy to put this into your own words, simply saying that X was not intentionally rude to someone else. Something like that. There is no reason for a direct quotation here. There's nothing so terribly specialized about the meaning of it that you would have to have a direct quotation. In fact, every sentence should be written in your own words. Basically, just describe to me what you find in the very same way that you would if you were telling it to a friend or a relative or someone that you know. Basically, just be yourself. Before I forget about it, this direct quotation would earn its author a 0 for the entire assignment. So if you have such things, get rid of them. You don't want to suffer that particular fate. Now, let's take a look within this assignment here. Notice that I've used blah 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 for the text, because in fact that's what the text looks like to me when I am checking it for these technical details. Certain things, however, will stand out to me as I scan through the text. So what I want you to do here, when you take a look at this, when you take a look at your own assignments, is to ignore everything but the detail that you are looking for. And what I'm looking for now are things that are definitely not natural to the writing style of an intelligent college student. And here's a perfectly good example of it. And X obtained tuition from Y, blah, blah, blah. Now, obtaining tuition from someone could be interpreted in various ways. Your own interpretation of it is probably quite a bit different from what the author of this particular source was thinking of. Obtaining tuition from someone else is an exceedingly grand way of saying that someone studied with someone else. There is no reason to copy someone else's writing style or to use such extravagant locutions. This is not the place for those sorts of flourishes. Avoid them. They will earn you a 0. You don't want to have anything to do with them. Now, you must use only the words that you actually understand in the text. Basically, if it's not something that we have covered in class, or something that is not a part of our working vocabulary on music, you should attempt to avoid it. If you must use a certain technical term, let's say you're dealing with an instrument and it has a certain word that describes a part of it, then you have to give a brief definition of it after that word. You cannot simply use a word because you think that I understand it. I have to know that you understand that word as well, and this is how you show me that you do. So let's take a look again at this sample assignment, and as I scan through an assignment, a word like this would pop out at me. Concresons. It's a sort of a word that I would imagine most people with an undergraduate degree in music have run across many times. It is not the sort of thing that is a natural part of your vocabulary. It's not something that we have actually covered in this class, and so in fact you would have to provide some sort of a definition of this word. Otherwise, it will earn you a 0. Make sure you attend to these details when you are writing your MRPs, and when you are checking it. Basically, the paper should actually sound like you, an intelligent Alabama college student. Just be yourself. I know you've heard people tell you this again and again, but when you are writing, that is probably the best uh, advice that you could possibly take. Another thing to remember when you are writing or talking about things is to write about only those things that you actually understand. If you don't understand something, for heaven's sakes, don't write about it. Can you imagine how embarrassing this would be if you were having a conversation and talking about or trying to describe something that you did not understand at all? This is a matter of common sense. And you would be surprised how often I take a look at these assignments and I find some really strange things in it. For example, this passage here. An inverse sesquialteral relationship to the prolation of the semibreve in the secunda pars. Now, whether or not this actually makes any sense should be automatically apparent to you if you are entitled to describe such things. If you cannot tell immediately whether or not this is correct, you should not be writing about such a detail. If you run across something that you don't understand in connection with one of your subtopics, for heaven's sakes, avoid it. There is absolutely no reason to deal with it. You are not obligated to deal with things that you do not understand. And now let's take a look at a few fine points of expressing what you are talking about, and that will have to do with expressions of date, time, and age. All references to date, time, and age should occur within or at the end of a sentence or a clause within a sentence. We'll take a little while to look through the text to see exactly what I mean by this. And the reason I'm asking you to do this is very simple. Very often books that deal, especially textbooks that deal with historical phenomena, things that happened in the past, often have a tendency to put dates, expressions of time, or age in connection with people at the very beginning of a sentence. In English, such things naturally occur at the ends of sentences, as you will realize once you study 4 or more languages. You understand where these things should fall within sentences. In our language, this is the best place to put them, and it's also the easiest place to have them. It makes it easier to comprehend what is happening in the text, and it also helps the text to flow much more smoothly if these things are somehow buried within a sentence.